All right, here we go, guys. Glenn Cunningham, Keller Williams. I'm here today with the man, the myth, the legend, Andrew Gresham.
How you doing, brother?
Yeah, thanks, dude. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you making some time for us today.
Absolutely.
So, cool. Well, let's get into this thing, dude. Tell me a little bit about you.
Well, I'm 34. I was a chef for most of my life. I've worked in all kinds of different restaurants, done big things with corporate clients. Finally, just wanted to get away, wanted to invest ultimately. So best way to do that is to immerse myself in the field of real estate. So about 5 years ago, I got my license as almost a fallback, just in case something went awry in the world. And lo and behold, I wanted to lean into it, so I went in full time and started with Coldwell Banker. Was a referral agent and went full active last year. And this is my first full-time, production year.
Cool.
Last year it was a little rocky getting started. Working with some great people, but just not the guidance that the how and the what and the why behind everything. So
Got it.
this year's been pretty cool.
Good. We'll get to that in one hot second for sure. I want to talk to you about that. So, how did you connect the dots from being a chef to real estate? Doesn't seem like that goes together.
Just like anything, there's a start, there's a finish, and there's the in between. So, with food, you got to start with the prep or a recipe, then you got to execute, and then you got to finish a plate, which is essentially, I guess, a closing or getting to the table. So, doing the work in between is the stuff that most people don't see. They see the beginning and the end. They don't see what goes on in the middle. So, I think that's probably a good. I don't know what the word is.
Well, it's kind of like real estate, though, too, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Both of them are the same. You can go look at houses all day long. You can go list a house. You can go to the table and put a sold sign on it. But what goes on in the middle, nobody really sees that unless you're involved with it. So.
Right. I think we're going to talk about that a lot because I think that's kind of where we're at with our industry right now. I think there's a lot of agents out there that if you look at them on social media, it looks like they're living these huge lives and they might be doing great. But there's a hell of a lot of work that goes into that.
Absolutely.
And so, you're seeing the finished product, you're seeing the success, but you don't see the grind that it takes to get there.
Absolutely.
And we'll talk about this here in a minute too, but I think there's a lot of agents out there that want that success, but they're just unclear on what they have to do to get there.
Absolutely.
Right.
So, when I got into real estate, it was, you see HGTV, you see these big things, and most of social media is the positives. So that's all you really see.
Right.
Anybody getting into real estate, in all honesty, I thought I was going to get into it. It's going to be easy, just make a lot of money, make sales, just go with it. But instead, there is a lot of work that goes in behind that to prep for that, to continually learn how to negotiate, work contracts, and everything in between. So there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes that most people do not realize.
No, I think you nailed it. It's something that Gary Keller says all the time is that real estate's not HGTV.
No.
And he says real estate it's a job.
Absolutely.
And it requires WORK. And most people don't do that. So okay, good. So you mentioned you started with another brokerage and you came over to KW. So a lot of options out there. So I always like to ask folks, why KW out of all the options that you had?
Keller really just the training that goes into the agents. That's one thing that I didn't have, that if I had that the access to that off the beginning, then I think I may not have switched ultimately if I had known all those things. But where I was, they didn't kind of teach that. So coming over here, it's been night and day versus where I was. So I've been learning daily, different models, methods, and just the how-to behind it, essentially. That's really what it boils down to.
Yeah, no, I love that. Well, that bleeds into my question here is, since you've been here, you joined Carrie's team with the Ellison Group, so I think you've been doing great with them. You mentioned, at the old brokerage, there wasn't a lot of training, there wasn't a lot of how-to, right? And here it's totally different. So what's changed, for you and your business since you've made that move here?
Well, essentially, I have my hours. Instead of working crazy hours and just jumping at anything that comes along, I've got it structured now to where certain times of the day are for lead generation. Some of them are for, showing a client a home, going on appointments, and the backside work with the computer work and contracts that need to be done, need paperwork. So with that, it's more structured. And with the structure comes comfortability with being able to be home with my wife, make dinner, being able to be home when work's over and not have to go out and be running the streets.
Okay, so time out, because I think a lot of people that are hearing this right now might be calling BS, right? Because as most realtors that I know out there in the world, we jokingly call them Pop-Tart agents, right? Because they just feel like they have to jump and go service people at the drop of a hat, right? But what you said is totally opposite. Yep. You said it's more about following a schedule. It's more about a structure, which gives you that comfortability, as you said it.
Absolutely.
Right? And you don't feel like you have to drop everything and you must go and do 12 hours a day.
No, and I like to set the expectation up front with, this is how we do business and this is what we do. This is how we get the job done. And there are times in the day, as we've got it scheduled, you're going to get a call at this certain time of whatever day it is of the week. We've got that already pre-done. So we're not having to jump when something happens. We don't have to just jump on it and freak out and go handle. Right. It's already being handled, and our clients know that it's being handled.
Yeah.
And that we'll communicate that when our scheduled time is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what I hear from this is that allows you to operate from a platform of strength and control, as opposed to chaos and maybe an attitude of lack, right?
It's much more in control, and our clients see that and understand that, and they appreciate that as well, because they don't want calls at random times of the day.
Right.
They've got jobs, they've got families, they've got their own things going on, and it's our job to handle that.
Right.
So that's it just really works out when everyone's on the same page, especially at the beginning. Like I said, we set the expectation. So when everyone's on the same page, client, realtor, everybody, it just works out.
Yeah. So that structure is actually what gives you the freedom.
Absolutely.
Which sounds so counterintuitive, right?
It does.
Because people get into real estate, and I hear it all the time. I say, why real estate? And they say, well, I want to have unlimited earning potential. I love that.
Sure.
And they say, I want to be my own boss. I love that.
Great.
And they say, I want to write my own hours. And I say, well, I kind of like that, right?
Sure.
But what I'm alluding to is that just means they're just going to go run willy-nilly and just pop around and see what happens, right?
Right.
But also Gary says, too, just to quote him, he says that, it's not about real estate. It's not about selling real estate. It's about following a schedule, right? And so you follow a structured schedule, and the discipline of that gives you the freedom that you want.
Absolutely.
Nailed it.
On weekends, go out and do whatever we want.
Love that. Okay, so since joining the team, obviously it's a bit of a different dynamic, right? You've already alluded to the structure that's there.
Absolutely.
Right? What tools or models have had the biggest impact on you and your business since you've been on that team?
With being on the team, the mornings, we are very structured. We're scheduled. We have our things going on. Lead generation in the mornings is key. And that's what I lean into in the mornings. When it comes to the models and the systems through Command and the different programs that are in place with KW, it pretty much does the work for us, so that we just have to feed it. It does the work. That way it opens up our day to do the rest of it and lead generate more. So that's the method and the system behind it, because at the end of the day, I think most people aren't lead generating, and when I can block my schedule out, I get it done no matter what.
Right.
So.
Right, and I know that works for you guys for sure. Because I talk to Carrie on a daily basis, and you guys constantly get about a 70%, sphere of influence return, right? I mean, that's where most of your business comes from, but you still have to lead gen through it.
Sure.
Right?
You can lean into the database and your SOIs and all that kind of stuff, but you have to keep feeding the funnel.
Right.
And if you're not feeding it, it's ultimately going to fall off.
Right, no doubt.
So.
Okay. You've already touched on this, but I always like to ask. So since you've been over here, you've gotten the discipline, you've gotten the structure, you're kind of getting it. What's changed as far as family, as far as your life, as far as your business? What impact has that had?
It's been a huge impact. not running around the streets at any hour of the evening going to showing houses. Somebody calls and I don't just jump up and go. We have that conversation to figure out and then go show 3 houses versus 20.
Got it. That's a big thing right there.
Absolutely.
I think that's an art right there, because I think so many agents would hear that right there. They say that doesn't happen.
Right.
You know?
Absolutely.
Like, how many agents really show someone 3 houses and they make a decision? Because most agents will show you as many as you want to see.
Absolutely.
Right.
But why waste their time and mine?
Right.
So
that's a mindset shift right there.
Sure. 100%. It's the mindset piece behind it.
Right.
And once you can actually put that into place and live it and work it with the expectations that we set up in the beginning,
right,
it just falls into place.
Right. So this would be a whole nother topic for another time. But what I heard from that is that you guys have really good expectations up front. You get really dialed in on motivation, why they're looking.
Absolutely.
The time frame. Kind of one question Carrie always asks is, what happens if?
Sure.
You know?
Yeah, I love that one.
And so therefore you don't have to go run around and show people 20, 30 homes. They can make a good decision after 3 or 4.
Absolutely. Because if we do the work up front, we don't have to do all the work in the middle.
Got it.
And it works more seamlessly.
I love that. Love that. Okay. All right, last question. We'll kind of wrap up, maybe 2 more. So obviously the market is shifted a lot over the last year.
Sure.
Right? So you said you got licensed
about 5 years ago, but
yeah.
I've been actively selling since 2022.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, so we say this all the time, but back in 2020 to 2022, we were in what we call a speed-based market. It was just how fast can you go. And now we've morphed into what we say is a skilled-based market, and that's why we're seeing so many realtors get out of the business. NAR is down 70,000 agents this year, maybe more at this stage, right? And you come in and you've just started rocking it, right? And in the toughest market we've seen in easily 10 years, and you've come in just lit on fire. So tell me how.
I think honestly for me to start it off, I didn't have the bad habits. I came into a market, I didn't even know it was that hot. I wasn't doing that much work because I really didn't know what I was doing wrong or what to do right. So coming over here and learning exactly what to do right and exactly what to say, then it just all anchored in, and I leaned into that and just really honed the craft of talking to people on the phone. And it comes down to a people business. And once I shifted away from thinking about the money with real estate, if the deal goes to close, the money's there. It's going to happen. So if you take the money piece out of your head and just go with the person that you're dealing with and give them a great experience, then it all falls into place, especially with being able to talk, how you speak to people, how you do things, the structure behind it, and everything of the sort.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So what it sounds like is, don't have the commission breath is what we say, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's fun.
We're in the people business, so lean into the people. Yeah,
I got you. And then to back this thing up, it sounds like what you're doing differently than a lot of agents out there. And again, I don't see what they do every single day, but I talk to a lot of them out there. It sounds like to me that you just got your lead gen dialed in, right? I mean, it's like you show up every single day. There's a routine to what you do every single day. And so you don't have to worry about what if, because you know that it's like you being a chef. Like you don't have to worry what the end result is going to be if you know how to put the recipe together.
If you follow the right steps, you start at the right place, you're going to end up with X product.
Right.
And that's where...
Right, and I think that's where a lot of the chaos happens for a lot of agents out there, because they don't have the process in place, and they're hoping and praying something good happens, but they're not doing the right steps to just get there.
Well, they do just a little bit, think they've done a great job at it, and just run forward with leaving all their leads behind. Yeah. And part of getting the leads, you have to nurture them. You have to stay with them. You have to. It's not just a one and done. That's right. It's a long-term process. So. That's right.
Well, let's wrap this up. Last thing. Any other advice? Any agents out there that are just struggling? Anything other than just putting your head down and lead generating, having a good buyer consult strategy session? Anything else comes to mind? You say you got to be doing this in this market right now.
Right now, you got to lean into the people. Get community oriented. If you're not part of clubs, join them. If you're not part of any social groups, join some. Being out there and just being in the public. Not necessarily being the person that says, oh, hey, look at me, I'm the realtor, come talk to me. Just being involved, people will know. And that in and of itself will lead to more.
Love that. So don't be a secret agent.
Don't be a secret agent.
Yeah. Get out there.
Let them know, but don't make it all about who you are.
Love that. Love that. Well, I appreciate the time.
Absolutely.
Thanks, dude. All right, cool. I love it.